because we always made to go to vacation Bible school and all that good
VBS.
stuff.
That's right.
When did you receive it? Say, you know what, I'm gonna submit to you, God. I'm gonna do your thing.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm glad that you asked me that question, because I have to go way, 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 way back with this one. But I still think that this story may be relevant. I actually just released a book called "And Then She Turned 50," and I told this story in the book about how when I was a teenager I had problems with God. I was upset with him. And I was being raised in a Christian home, so I was afraid to ask the questions that I needed to ask, because I didn't feel like I would get the answer. I felt like I would get scolded. You know what I'm saying? And the reason I had problems with God is because, around the age of 13, I was being raised next door to my grandparents. And my grandmother passed away in her sleep. And she was like my best friend. Every time I get off the bus, I was a little thick kid. She'd make 5-course meals, and I'd come right over there at 4:00 in the afternoon, and they were ready. But we were such good friends. And what happened was she passed away. But then when we were being taught in church at that time, of course, to be absent from the body is to be present with Jesus. But if you sin, you're going to hell. Period. Right. So I heard her say a cuss word. S-H-I-T one day.
Not your grandma.
Because somebody made her mad, right? But she was still such an amazing woman. So, we hear these fire and brimstone messages, but that's what was embedded in me. And I thought, I was in my mind like, what if God sent my sweet, loving grandmother to hell? And so I stayed in my head with it. And I was, I never wanted to ask anyone, because they're like, oh, that ain't none of your business. That's between them and God. If they repented before they die, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, no, it stuck with me. No, like, if that's the kind of God, if he's that mean, I don't want to see him anyway. And I don't want nothing to do with him. I want no parts of him. So I would go to church and just be there for the music, because I was always a singer. I would always sing, always heckle, always play in church, always a class clown. That's the only reason I was going to church. But then my brother went off to the Air Force. By the time I was like 16 years old, I would call his phone. His outgoing message was a song called, it was from Commissioned, called "Only What You Do for Christ Will Last."
Yes.
And I used to love to call his phone and hear the outgoing message. And he would pick up. I'm like, no, hang up. I was trying to listen to that song. So he was just like, why don't you just go get the tape? It was the tape back then, go get the tape. And I did. And I was introduced to Commissioned, and I was introduced to another side of God. I was just through the lyrics. And back in that time, Commissioned was considered worldly gospel music.
For sure.
You know what I mean? But it ministered to me in a way that I didn't hear from the pulpit. So I was a lot more open to who God was after hearing Commissioned. And I fell in love with Commissioned. My heart started to open for worship, at that time. And then I started feeling like, no, I can be honest. I can be real with this God. And then my brother came home from the Air Force, and there was one weekend that he led me to Christ, and I was 16 years old. And I had a different relationship with God than I had, than my parents had. Everybody else was just like, well, you love God in this house. That's for me in my house. We're going to praise the Lord. But then I actually had a relationship with God. I felt like I could talk to God. I felt like I could pray to God. I felt like he understood me. And I felt like I wasn't strange for having questions. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my faith journey. That's how I got there. And this is why I'm so odd to this very day.
We love it. Honestly, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you share that, because that's been your draw. And I can just speak for myself. It was like, okay, she loves the Lord. She's singing. She cutting up. She making jokes. She flipping worldly songs. Like it was like you made it okay to be you. And that, to me, that's when you step on the stage or when you grab a microphone, that to me, that's what the audience receives, is like,
Wow.
I'm who I am. You know, I'm gonna show you how I love. I'm gonna show you how I love the Lord. How I love the Lord. How I'm gonna worship the Lord. I'm gonna show you how I personally do this. And not a lot of people do that. A lot of people do the cookie cutter, whatever I've seen. I got to stay in the. There's no box for you.
Come on, that's right. And you know what? And you know we talk about it. We talk about it all the time. We say God is not in a box. Well, if we're His children, why should we be in a box?
Right. There's no box at all. And that's needed, man, to help people get free. Yeah. So that's been one of the things I've absolutely loved about you. Focus, I know you got questions. I'm gonna let you ask because you know how I would just go.
No, it's you do a great job. Listen, I want to hear more about the music because I think Dice just kind of hit it on it. Like, you're not boxed in.
No.
And your music, listen, it's not only needed, it just resonates with people. If people so my question is this. Why do people struggle with being authentic? Because people act like, let me listen to your playlist when you ain't at church on Sunday. Go stop it. So when somebody who's kingdom, who literally gives you that same good vibe, that R&B soul you want, and by the way, gonna give you some content that you need for your spirit anyway to keep you uplifted and inspired. Why is that a problem? Why do you think so many people got so much flack for it? And we can go down the list. Not only you, Kirk Franklin Commission. We can go down the list of people. Why do you think religious people act that way? Our church goes.
Yeah.
You said it. Religion.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it. And here's, I've grown past attacking religious people. I've grown past it because I used to attack them enough. But I understand that their intentions are good. Their intentions are to please God. Their intentions are to tell you how to please God. But that's the problem. You are supposed to share your authenticity and let God shine Himself. He said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all the men unto me. Right. We don't allow God to draw through our lifting Him. We don't allow God to do whatever He's going to do with drawing His children. So we're not humble enough. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we're just not humble enough to allow God to do whatever He wants in this earth because it's His, with His children because they're His. We don't let God do it. We feel like we need to be in control of that. And that is the biggest issue, is that, religion and religious people just feel like they're commissioned to be in control of the narrative. You know what I mean? And it's like, how? You don't even know me. You don't know what I'm doing. You don't know my history or my destiny. How can you put yourself in that position to try to control what God does with me? It's a serious thing. So, but that's it. It's religion.
I love it. That's good. Girl, you know you're right. Girl, you know you're right. That's bad. I had my little tweet earlier today. What's your real name gonna do? That's what I hear in the back of my mind. All right. Listen.